We light this morning's chalice with these words. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Please join me in reading 531. The Oversoul by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought, that the highest dwells within us, that the sources of nature are in our own minds. As there is no stream or ceiling between our heads and the infinite heavens, so there is no bar or wall in the soul where we, the flesh, cease, and God, the cause, begins. I am constrained every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will I call mine. There is a deep power in which we exist and whose attitude is accessible to us. Every moment when the individual feels invaded by it is memorable. It comes to the lowly and simple. It comes to whosoever will put off the storm and the crowd. It comes as insight. It comes as serenity and grandeur. The soul's health consists in the fullness of its reception. Forever and ever, the influx of this better and more universal self is new and unsearchable. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love.
I love that Emerson piece. I would probably lift it up if we talked in such language as my favorite Unitarian Universalist scripture. Because I think it points to this nebulous question of what is spirituality? In this year's Canvas survey and also in the assessment of my ministry, there was many people who said that they wanted the service to be more spiritual. It's hard to know what that means in a Unitarian Universalist context. It could mean more Christianity. It could mean more paganism. It could mean a more formal, reverent service. It could mean a more lively, emotional service. So my sermon today is basically a question. What does spirituality mean to you? I'll be discussing some of the answers I come up with, but I know that my answers are only a few among many. The English word spirit comes from the Latin spiritus, which means to breathe. So in English, we also have the word respiration. Breathing in is called inspiration, and breathing out, expiration. But inspiration, besides its biological meaning, has a different meaning. It's about receiving ideas and passions from a source outside of oneself. Some of my sermons are inspired. Some weeks ideas come to me and I write. It's almost like recording the ideas that are in the air. The words come to me almost as a gift. Let me assure you that doesn't happen every week. Perhaps you have noticed. Some weeks' sermons are like slogging through the mud. I spend 15 minutes just searching for the right word. The source outside of myself is merely the thesaurus function on my computer. Sometimes when there is a lack of ideas, I rely on rhetorical techniques. I think I'll add a little subtle internal alliteration. Or I may create a litany. Yes, it's true. I will build a paragraph around a repeated phrase. Yes, it's true. This repetition brings a comforting predictability to the sermon. Yes, it's true. At times, I will insert longer sentences between the repeated phrase in order to create a tension that cries for resolution. Yes, it's true. Soon the listeners will know by the tone of my voice when I am about to say, yes, it's true. Some will say it with me, yes, it's true. Some will feel inspired. Yes, it's true. Some will feel silly. Yes, it's true. Yes, it's true that rhetoric is a tool with the potential to lift people to new heights. But it's also true that it can be empty. Where is that truth that we are looking for? Conversely, I could deliberate precisely about the truth and footnote my references. According to an article in the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, written by Bradley Dowden of California State University, Sacramento, and Norman Schwartz of Simon Fraser University, historically, the most popular theory of truth was the correspondence theory, first proposed in a vague form by Plato and Aristotle in his Metaphysics. The realistic theory says that truth is what propositions have by corresponding to the world as the way it is. The theory says that a proposition is true provided there is a fact corresponding to it. In other words, for any proposition P is true only if P corresponds to fact. And what are facts? The notion of a fact as some sort of ontological entity was first stated explicitly in the second half of the 19th century. The correspondence theory does permit facts to be mind-dependent entities or concepts. Metager and perhaps Kant held such correspondence theories. The correspondence theories of humanist philosophers such as Russell, Wittgenstein, or Austin consider facts to be mind-independent. Now, I react to this article by recalling the existentialist philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, who in 1844 published a book entitled Concluding Unscientific Postscripts to the Philosophical Fragments. Now, this tome contains the phrase, truth is subjectivity, which suggests to me that truth is the subjective meaning we attach to facts. Which type of sermon is more spiritual? The one where I try to carry the emotions to an ecstasy of revealed truth, or where I challenge the mind to explore the historical ramifications of different postulations of truth? Should my sermons be uplifted with the spirit of evangelism, or should I deepen them with the spirit of scholarship? But ultimately, spirituality has to be more than just a style. It must be a manner of being rather than a manner of speaking. Perhaps by spiritual people mean including more religious content. Say the word goddess a bit more. Make more references to Buddha, to Jesus, to Vishnu. But I don't think this name dropping is sufficient, because I have heard lectures on many religious topics. Although they were informative, they weren't necessarily inspirational. The content of a religion does not make it spiritual. The Humanist Manifesto 3 claims no supernatural power, yet it contains this statement, which I consider deeply spiritual. Life's fulfillment emerges from individual participation in the service of humane ideals. We aim for our fullest possible development and animate our lives with a deep sense of purpose, finding wonder and awe in the joys and beauties of human existence, its challenges and tragedies, and even in the inevitability and finality of death. That striving that's inherent in that humanist statement, that striving itself, is the human spirit crying out for purpose. For me, spirituality is an attitude towards belief rather than the belief itself. The various religions and philosophies contradict each other, yet each has the potential for spirituality. I've heard people say, I'm spiritual but not religious. And I think they are trying to capture the sense of awe and wonder without committing to a specific doctrine. Now, nobody actually claims, well, I'm religious but not spiritual. But we've all seen it. Those people who learn all the supposed rules and then try to inflict them upon others. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, writes, "But now, by dying to what bound us, we have been released from the law, so that we serve in the new way of the Spirit, and not in the old way of the written code." And Jesus, in his ministry, confronts these lawmakers. "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat but swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside will be clean." Jesus and Paul are calling people to a religion that reaches beyond just following the rules. Rules and doctrines are external things. They may help us create the appearance of goodness. Religion cleans the outside of the cup. Spirituality cleans the inside of the cup. If we meditate on love, justice, and peace, we will be transformed from the inside out. Justice, mercy, and faithfulness are too big to be contained in a rule book. A rule book is an inanimate object that can only approximate justice. After the civil rights sit-ins, the law changed and lunch counters were integrated. The law changes outward behavior, but it did not change the inner hatred of many. To this day, political groups try to unseat the so-called activist judges who enforce the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution. But others, when the law forced the change of their external behavior, saw that as an opportunity for a larger spiritual transformation, to commit themselves to the ideals of equality which this nation was built. And a person committed to the ideals of equality will not segregate, not because some law forbids it, but because the ideal of equality makes it unthinkable. Spirituality is about relationships. Spirituality is the breath of life. Religion is the dead letter of the law. Jewish theologian Martin Buber talked about the relationships being central to spirituality in his book, I Am Thou. He describes one type of relationship, the I and it. A person uses something. A person uses religion to keep themselves out of trouble. If one follows the rules, one has a less chance of being arrested or other unpleasantness. Another type of relationship is the I-thou relationship. It is a motivation to understand and relate to the other, to try to get to the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law. It involves dialogue, questioning, responding. In an I-thou relationship, the spirit comes alive. In religion, it's conceived as a personal relationship with God. But in practice, it can apply to any aspect of life. Martin Buber writes, "One who truly meets the world goes out also to God." So this relationship, this I-thou relationship, is a spirituality that breathes life into facts and transforms them into truth. One can observe the fact of a tree. Spirituality looks for the truth of a tree. The ritual of communion or of Passover is a fact. But the truth one experiences when one participates in ritual is spirituality. One can sit quietly and observe that one is breathing. Spirituality transforms this to the truth of meditation. Spirituality is strong enough to find truth even in fiction. The story of Romeo and Juliet is fictional, yet it points to the truthful tragedy of human tribalism that destroys the potential of love. All religions have stories, some more factual than others. Spirituality calls us to enter into these stories, to interact with them, and uncover truths that are independent of the facts. Each of us in this room may find inspiration in different things: a prayer, a song, a scientific discovery, dinner. Spirituality comes from sharing our experiences. Every relationship has the potential to be an I-thou relationship, whether it is with a rock or the person next to you. And perhaps the person next to you is your rock. That sentence cannot be factually true, but it may be poetically true. Spirituality is the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It is free because, like the wind, the Spirit moves where it will. Responsible because we refuse to treat people and the world as mere objects. We take the time to deepen our relationships. So that's what I have to say about spirituality. My opinion, one among many. By listening to you, I have the chance to be spiritually transformed. And the first time I ever went to a UU church, and then people got up and disagreed with the minister, I had a spiritual transformation and said, this is the church that I need to belong to. So, I welcome your statements. Is this on? Is this working? Oh, I should speak into the right end. Sometimes facts are helpful.
Well, I just wanted to say this is my personal belief. No one will feel that way. But I think that it was called God's tree. And somebody who didn't like religion turned it around into dogwood. Do you bark at a tree?
I just say that this was a good spiritual sermon for me.
I know there's opinions out there.
I actually just read a book by a Unitarian Universalist minister. I'd highly recommend it. It's called Here When You Need Me, and she's actually a chaplain for the Maine Warden Service. She says, I'm religious but not spiritual, and she talks about Unitarian Universalism as being a religion of doing and social action.
I really like the lines here. When it breaks our intelligence, it is genius. And I just recently read where Einstein said he wanted to know the mind of God. And I believe what he did, he broke through his own intelligence to get inspiration. And that's what I really believe that spirituality is. We have to break through our intelligence to find something higher.
One of my sense of awakening insight came from reading Thich Nhat Hanh, the well-known Buddhist monk, who writes that we are always in some spiritual condition or other, all the time. And for me, that suggests that the purpose of religion is to minister to our spiritual needs and to help that spirituality develop.
Charlie, I come here because being here gives me every Sunday an inexplicable feeling of spirituality. And it's not the sermon, it's not any one piece, but it's the totality of being here in this community. I see people sharing their joys and sorrows in the hallway and formally. I see hugs, I see crying, I hear the music, and I cannot go through that song, Spirit of Life, in fact, without a tear coming down my cheek. And as an engineer at heart, I cannot explain any of that. But it is joyful and sometimes sorrowful, and that's the spirit of this place for me.
So I'm going to ask us to rise and sing a song, a spiritual, every time I feel the Spirit. It's number 208. Carol will give us the first notes, but we are not going to be restricted by the rules of music.